решили сделать так, поубирать остекление, оставить только лобовое.
A Russian assault in the Kupyansk direction ended in disaster. Fighters of the 43rd Separate Mechanized Brigade, together with FPV drone crews, repelled the attack, inflicting heavy losses. One recent example of this collapse came in the Kupyansk direction. A Russian assault there ended in disaster when fighters from Ukraine's 43rd Separate Mechanized Brigade, supported by FPV drone units, repelled the attack. Ukrainian forces unleashed precise drone strikes on advancing Russian troops and armored vehicles, inflicting heavy losses before the assault could gain any ground. Survivors who fled or surrendered later reported confusion, poor coordination, and a lack of artillery support, all signs of the growing dysfunction within Russian ranks. Ukrainian kamikaze drones attacked an explosives plant in the city of Dzerzhinsk, Nizhny Novgorod region of Russia. The attack took place on April 9th. On the same day, the head of the region announced that he had repelled a drone attack over the industrial territory of one of the districts. According to him, no casualties or damage were reported. According to Astra, at least 3 UAVs hit the territory of the Sverdlov plant, a key enterprise in Russia's military industry and a city-forming facility in Dzerzhinsk. The strike damaged a pipeline overpass and 2 workshops. This is not the first attack on the plant. On October 20th, 2024, 16 drones were launched at the plant. Then one of the shops producing oxygen and hexogen was damaged. The explosion smashed windows and doors in the building and damaged the roof. The company was included in Ukraine's sanctions list for supporting actions that undermine or threaten the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence of Ukraine. On June 23, 2023, the plant was also sanctioned by the European Union. In addition, it is under sanctions from the United States, the United Kingdom, Japan, and Switzerland. As a reminder, this plant was listed in a Bloomberg report as the final recipient of a nitric acid and nitric sulfuric acid mixture purchased by Russia to circumvent sanctions. On April 6th, it was reported that a drone with a suspended aircraft bomb hit the engineering center for fiber optics during an attack on Saransk. The attacked enterprise is part of a complex for producing fiber optic cables, which are actively used by the Russian side for military purposes, primarily in FPV drones. Russians never cease to amaze with their engineering innovations. This time, they've decided to ditch the glass and weld on metal grills instead. Well then, just how well thought out that decision was, we'll only see on the battlefield.
Решили сделать так, поубирать остекление, оставить только лобовое. И сделать жесткие сетки, чтобы можно было оружие применять, задняя мелкая. Ну и дверь-то в принципе заварена. Заделали зад, обе стороны. Под запаску приняли вот такое решение, сделали стяжку под 2 запаски. Спокойненько работает. Оп. Все приварено, приварены обе. Будет держаться отлично. Проверено. Приварили вот так вот. Все крепко.
The United States is deploying 50 M1126 Stryker armored vehicles to Texas to reinforce troops on the southern border. Department of Defense Visual Information Dissemination Service released the footage of the equipment being loaded. On April 5th, the U.S. Army deployed about 50 Stryker armored personnel carriers to Fort Bliss, Texas, to reinforce the 12th Infantry Regiment, 1st Brigade, 2nd Brigade Combat Team Stryker, 4th Infantry Division. In addition to the Strykers, the cargo platforms of the Echelon also include loaded JLTV tactical armored vehicles and other logistics equipment of the U.S. Army. According to the Northern Command Order, the armored unit will provide support to the Joint Task Force, which is sealing the southern border and countering illegal border crossings. Units of the Stryker Brigade Combat Team began deploying to the border with Mexico in early March by order of the U.S. President. They were joined by engineering, reconnaissance, and communications units. In addition, 500 Marines were deployed in January to cover the border service using V-22 Osprey convertible aircraft from the U.S. Marine Corps. In total, the Pentagon officially planned to deploy up to 1,500 troops in the border areas. The deployment of troops to the U.S.-Mexico border may be hiding something more than a local patrol operation. Recently, NBC News reported that the Trump administration is considering the possibility of a military operation in Mexico. The U.S. government has been studying the potential for drone strikes against cartels in Mexico as part of the fight against drug trafficking across the southern border of the United States. The U.S. military and the CIA have already stepped up reconnaissance flights over Mexico in an effort to track the activities of major cartels. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum confirmed the flights of U.S. reconnaissance drones over Mexico with the party's consent. Units of the U.S. 10th Mountain Division, which were deployed to strengthen border security earlier this year, have deployed AN/TPQ-53 and AN/MPQ-64 Sentinel radars to monitor the activity of small drones used by drug cartels. Drones remain one of the key issues at the border, as cartels use them to provide reconnaissance and drug trafficking across the border. In addition, Mexican illegal paramilitary groups have been using kamikaze drones in internal conflicts for years. Japan has expressed interest in participating in the command of the NATO military support mission to Ukraine. The Associated Press reported on this. Japan's Defense Minister Gen Nakatani announced his country's interest during talks with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte in Tokyo. The mission, called NATO Security Assistance and Training for Ukraine, is headquartered at the U.S. military base in Wiesbaden, Germany. The details of the mission, including the possibility of sending any members of the Japan Self-Defense Forces to Wiesbaden, have yet to be discussed. However, Japanese cooperation will not include participation in combat operations, as Tokyo has limited the role of its military since World War II. Nakatani stated that Japan wants to further deepen security cooperation with NATO, and that participation in the NSATU mission will help Tokyo learn lessons from Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Both Japan and NATO are facing many challenges, and our security environment is becoming increasingly more stringent, Nakatani said. Japan noted that the Russia-Ukraine war demonstrates that security risks in Europe and Asia are inseparable, and Tokyo is seeking closer ties with the alliance. The island nation also seeks to join the United States in expanding defense ties with other friendly countries in the Indo-Pacific region. Rutte told Nakatani that China, North Korea, and Russia are stepping up their military exercises and cooperation, undermining global security, because whatever happens in Euro-Atlantic issues also affects the Indo-Pacific region. Japan considers China a threat in the region and has accelerated its military buildup in recent years, including the acquisition of long-range cruise missiles. At the end of last month, 2 Ukrainian armed forces soldiers arrived in Japan to undergo rehabilitation and prosthetics at the hospital of the National Military Medical College of the Ministry of Defense. They will stay in the country for about 3 months.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week, it's 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.